Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show for Tuesday. It is May the 26th. Welcome back after a Memorial Day weekend. 3 days for some of you that are in the federal service. Some of you still had to keep working. I understand that. I decided I'd take a little time off, take an extra day. And I really did get away from it yesterday. I don't know if any of you guys did this as well, but I kind of disconnected. I saw very little of social media. I didn't really want to see what was going on. The stuff I saw was ugly. There was a little bit of remembrances of people who remember those they've lost. It's a couple of really beautiful moments, I think, as well, that I saw this morning. TULSI Gabbard took a trip to Arlington from a woman who posted something on X, of all places, on Twitter, who said, I hope somebody will come and check in on the tombstone for my husband. And it seems like that became a cause that people took up and went on. And so that's great. I'm glad they did that. I'm glad people took a little time off. I spent some time at a pool with my kiddos. I'll tell you one thing I saw, and this is just sort of just a random observation, but there's a lot of men in my age bracket who have children, late 30s, early 40s, and more of them are just absolutely covered with tattoos. And I think that's actually a reflection of a generation that went to war and then what masculinity meant for the men that are my age and a little bit younger and obviously a little bit older, who saw soldiers and Marines and airmen, going in, sailors, going into a conflict and then coming out tatted up. They started off with the half sleeves that they could wear in uniform, and some of those were liberalized. And so you see a lot of these tattoos that make everybody I see look like they served in the military. And I know a lot of them didn't. And so that's kind of an interesting thing to sort of recognize, that we have a generation of people who went to war. And then a lot of people who like to look like people who went to war. Interesting as we kind of come out of that day. We have a number of things that are strange and I think they're disquieting. Today is the 26th, which means it's a primary day in the state of Texas. I have no interest in pretending like what I have to say to the GOP in Texas matters, so I won't be casting a vote one way or another. I had a couple of people tag me on social media. I was like, what are you tagging me for? And they were like, oh, I just wanted to make sure that you knew it was a primary. I was hoping you'd go out and push voting. It's like, if you want to vote, I think you should. Go for it. I think you should do whatever it is that makes you happy. If you want to be online on Memorial Day, you should be online. If you want to be at the pool, hanging out with your kids, doing things with your family, I think you should do that. If you want to eat a bacon cheeseburger, you should do that too. I'm not here to tell people what to do or why they should do as I do, but I will tell you why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I'm not interested in pretending. And I think there's a lot of people that are going to get less and less interested in pretending. I saw a post from a guy named Michael Ferris. He was in Kentucky. He was sort of like a dark horse candidate for Senate in the primary for the GOP. He posted something this morning that just absolutely solidifies my belief that we're not voting our way out of this because votes are not real. And it doesn't mean that that I'm right, by the way. It's just the operational, that's the way that I'm looking at the world. It's the information that's available to me. If it makes sense to you, then do whatever you want with it. I'm going to tell you why I think it is that way. It's really hard to break that mindset, however, that what you're doing has no impact on the thing that's out there. The crazy thing is that you would believe that if you saw that, let's say, Donald Trump ran against Joe Biden. Joe Biden stayed in his basement, didn't come out, terrified of COVID, was 1,000 years old, seemed senile at the time, said weirdly racist stuff, and didn't engage in debate, and didn't have to face the population of the United States to make a good, strong case, and simply rode in on the biggest electoral wave ever. And you looked at those numbers and you said, that doesn't seem in line with reality. I don't think that's possible. I think we may have seen a stolen election. I think we would have at least seen shenanigans in certain areas We saw strange spikes in graphs. We saw people calling races too early. We saw a bunch of things that looked like it was already in the bag, and they didn't even mind showing it to us. And so when that happened, people said, I'm not into that. In fact, I'm going to go make my voice known. I've never protested anything ever. And I'm going to get in my car in Ohio or Indiana or Oklahoma, and I'm going to drive my happy ass all the way to Washington, D.C. because I am pissed off because I think that they actually showed us that something got stolen. And it may have been stolen the times before, but they didn't throw it in our faces and say, we don't even care if you notice. And so a lot of people went, and some of them started a riot. A couple hundred people. Of the tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands. So maybe you think that way, going back to November of 2020, January of 21. And then what happened? You think that it was too big to rig because Donald Trump got in. November of 24, we didn't have a war. We had an election, we like to believe. That's what people want to believe. Nobody was more surprised than me to see that we saw the outcome that people hoped there was. And I was in that hoping category. Now, I got what I wanted on day one. I got a pardon for the people that I care about. Do I care about all the J6ers? I don't. If you reach out to me, by the way, there's a couple of J6ers that are like, we'd like to get some J6ers on your show. I said, why? And they're like, so we can raise awareness. I'm like, there's plenty of awareness. I'm not interested in everybody's story. I just be honest with you. I'm not. There are some stories that are truly exceptionally bad. There are some generically bad stories as well, where the government came out with an agenda and really screwed over Americans. But I think we either know that or we don't know that at this point. I don't need to hear from everybody about it, and I'm not trying to raise money for your foundation per se. There's a lot of things that are unjust going on. This is just one more of them. But the craziest part is that everybody sort of sensed that they voted their way out of this problem. And then we found out that maybe we didn't. And I say that because there were a lot of promises that were made. And those promises looked like they were coming to fruition. At least they had the right instinct on the first couple days. And now we have a ceasefire in Iran, which is a war that we didn't need to start, but we did start. And there's plenty of intelligence available, and there's plenty of people that are talking about it. And now we have people jumping ship from the administration, and they are the people that were actually there to do the thing that we really hoped they were going to do. De-weaponize government, start taking on the intel agencies, start looking for a government that is actually serving the people and not the government. And it's sort of status quo. And Joe Kent, no longer there. Tulsi Gabbard stepped away. Do you want to know the craziest thing about today's show, which I pointed out that Tulsi Gabbard resigns, she's leaving. She's not quite gone yet. And that we have a ceasefire with a war that we weren't even supposed to start. We have a ceasefire that involves actively bombing and shooting on both sides. So it's not really a ceasefire. It's also bullshit. It's made up. And they're like, guys, we're just going to bomb you a little bit, and if you just keep this up, we're going to not agree to stop shooting at you, even though we're both shooting at each other on both sides still, because it's still happening, but this is a ceasefire. So we've made up the words about ceasefire. We're willing to compromise on what the concept of war means, and people are willingly going along with that. We're going to bomb people into peace and submission, supposedly. And we're watching people bail out of this administration that want to have a future in politics, or maybe just have a personal instinct that this is not what they signed up for either. And we're watching the whores, and there's no other way to say what they are, but the whores who prostituted themselves against Trump, for Trump, and now against Trump, because it's starting to be obvious that there is a growing sentiment of people who are like, this is just not what I voted for. This is not what I asked for. This is not, I had an expectation. I put an order in at the restaurant, and what came out was something completely different. And the whores will show who they are, because we can see where they flip-flop. I'm going to talk about Megyn Kelly today, who seems to be the most political whore of all these people. And she's not wrong. She just doesn't seem to have any principle, like so many of them. And I'm watching people in the administration to basically decide whether they've got three options. One option is that everything Donald Trump says is amazing because Donald Trump is the Republican Party. There is a group of people that'll say that. And there are whores that say that too. Ben Shapiro is one of those people, a previously never Trumper, and now everything he says is Donald Trump is the best. So that's a whore option. Another option is I need to bow out of this and get away from it. Yeah, Lindsey Graham is one of those too. The other option is I got to bow out of this and get away from this. And so people who are smart are starting to distance themselves. We're seeing J.D. Vance kind of saying like, hey, maybe I won't put my name into the hat for 2028 because I think that this brand is damaged and I'm going to need some time to rehabilitate my brand. And then the last group of people are people that were all in on Donald Trump and they were selling him aggressively and they were saying that he was the right answer for all the reasons. And then they're going to say, oh, that's not going to be the case anymore. And so they have to walk away. How about those of us that were always sensible, that just said, we believe in the principles, we still believe in those same principles, America first, taking care of this country, no foreign aid, make the country affordable again, let's stop the conflicts, let's not have another generation of people who are tatted up like a bunch of GWAT veterans, even if they didn't serve, because that doesn't need to be the standard, because we're not going to send people to war in foreign countries. Where they try to explain away trauma, they need to remember certain things, or maybe they just need to look tough and hard. And by the way, being sleeve tatted up and muscular, it is pretty hard looking. Being sleeve tatted up and fat and lazy and coming out of a background where you didn't have that, but you are now approximating the same look as a bunch of warriors, that's not as tough as you guys think it is. Anyway, I'm not a tattoo guy. I got none. My wife has none. There are no tattoos in this house. I don't hate people that have tattoos. I'm just noting how interesting it is that it became so common. And I think it's common because we spent 20 years at war. And we've got a president who has contributed zero children into that effort. And seems to really still have that same attitude, which makes me start thinking some of the ugly things that were said about him in his first term, they might have been true. The suckers and losers bit, like that. The more I watch what he says, when he's not under pressure to say it, he says some really ugly, stupid stuff, which has been my contention about Donald Trump from the beginning, and I think I've been really honest about it, which is that some of the stuff he says, I like. The more he talks, the less I like of it, generally speaking. And I really wish he would stop. All right, we have a sponsor today that I think is relevant in the time of a country that is maybe in flux. And at some point in the very near future, we're going to have a discussion about warlordism and local warlordism and how it is kind of like the oldest and most primitive form of government in a lot of ways. I think that is a possibility that this country ends up in because people are so disappointed. And if that's the case, you're going to probably need to hide yourself from government and big tech and a bunch of other stuff that's out there. So consider my friends over at Silent. Guys, your phone is a tracking device, as are the other digital devices that you carry around. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about government agencies or big tech or corporate data brokers or even cyber criminals, people who want a piece of your digital footprint because they can get it. And so the only thing you can do, this is a great way to unplug. This is a good way to have some sanity in your life, maybe on Memorial Day, is put your phone in a Faraday sleeve where it doesn't activate your smartwatch and it doesn't even give out a signal. It just goes into the bag and disappears. That's why Silent exists. It's slnt.com/KYLE. Silent.com/Kyle. Use my name at checkout. You're going to save 15%. You'll get free shipping on qualified orders. They make an outstanding product. I very much like using their stuff. I try to find excuses to use their stuff every day. They have a crossbody sling that can carry a weapon and also put your phone away, but it stays with you for emergencies. They've got backpacks that I absolutely love. The E3 Everyday Faraday backpack is almost always sold out because it is such a well-designed piece of equipment. Whenever I show it to people, I went to SHOT Show and I showed it and people are like, oh, that's epic. I need that. Is it the cheapest? No, but it's very good and it's intelligently laid out and it does what it's supposed to do. What it does is it blocks all wireless signals, cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, RFID, near-field communications, all these kind of things. So you don't have any tracking. There's no remote access to your devices. You don't have any breadcrumbs following you around. It's the same kind of tech. Actually, I wish I had this when I was in the FBI because the stuff we had was mostly not functional, from Chinese, kind of garbage. And so I ended up using like an ammo can and tinfoil. Not very sophisticated. This stuff looks great. It's very easy. I keep this one on the desk at all times. This is the easiest little, least expensive one they have. But actually, the more you spend, the more you get with them. So anyway, you spend $80, you'll get like a basic, capable piece of equipment. You spend $300, you're going to get probably your favorite backpack that you own. Something like that. So consider, making an investment if you guys are travelers and if you want to be able to protect your equipment, especially as AI and this tech surveillance state grows. You're going to want to have something that you can get off grid and still keep the access to your comms and so on. Check out slnt.com/KYLE, link in the show description. That was a long-winded startup. We're going to get into today's show, and I'm going to start with, I think, numbers. I like numbers sometimes. This is the way we're going to get going. Let's get into today's program starting now. A little bit of the bacon cheeseburger cup. This one's almost empty. Good thing I've got a second one sitting here. All right, let's do numbers. All right, I told you, I read this post this morning. Nothing confirmed to me more than what I already think than looking into this post from Michael Ferris. He leads off with a couple of sirens, says, "I'm sorry, folks. I may be crazy, but I ain't an idiot." Now, I started following him because he was at a couple events and he filmed some Tom Massie speeches that were in Kentucky. And like I said, he was a dark horse candidate running for Senate. The math doesn't math in Kentucky. And since we got a pretty good national spotlight applied to it because of all the money that the Israeli lobby was spending there, and the Republican Jewish coalition and all these other people coming in, dropping tens of millions of dollars, I'm looking at their primary, and it's the reason why I'm not voting today in Texas primary. Because I think that the party gets exactly who the party wants. They used to have this expression when I was in law enforcement. And one of the things you do, at least annually in the FBI, you do it quarterly, is that you qualify with your firearm. Okay. And so you go in to the range and they set up the targets. You have a fixed course of fire in the FBI. You shoot at 3 yards, then 5 yards, then 7. And then I think it's 15 and then 25. And it's not training. Okay. It's simply a proficiency. It's a demonstration of skills. And the real problem is that a lot of these law enforcement agencies, they treat the qualification like that is training. Okay? It's a checkbox. But the sophisticated law enforcement officer knows that training is for the officer or for the agent. The qualification is for the agency. It's a CYA for the people you work for. It's not making you better. And it's not giving you something that you need that you can apply in your real life. It's showing that you did the minimum, that you're capable of the minimum. And so you're checking the box. So the agency is covered. If you use force, they did their job. They showed that you have proficiency. I think a very, very similar analogy applies to the primaries in these parties. Okay? I think that the primary is a lot like a qualification. And it's for the parent agency. It's for the party. The primary is for the party in the way that the qualification is for the agency. It's a checkbox to say, yeah, we did what we're supposed to do. But what does it end up with? It ends up with the person that they want to run. And occasionally you get this sort of like dark horse outside candidate, which is what they want to do. They want to go in a different direction. Michael Ferris, he says, "I'm not buying that the latest U.S. Senate race in Kentucky pulled in 215,923 more voters during a primary than Donald Trump was able to motivate to come out and vote in the primary in 2024. For two people named Andy Barr and Daniel Cameron. Nope, not happening, didn't happen, not a chance. There is not a planet in this universe where this is even mathematically plausible, and even if it were written and cast in some sort of magical imagination film by Disney, sorry, folks, you don't have secure election, and I'm not even sure how you ever will." He goes on to say the government spit in your face and then slapped you open-handed if you called this race with just 2% of the results in. And then he goes on to show the numbers. And this is what he's talking about. Now, these are going to be pretty small if you're watching, unless you're on a television right now, so I'll try to blow this up. These are the top two contenders for votes in 2024 in the GOP primary in Kentucky. Donald Trump got 85% of the vote with 215,000 votes, and he received all the delegates. Nikki Haley was the closest runner-up with 6.4%, and she got 16,232 votes. For president in a presidential cycle in 2024. 215,000 votes for Donald Trump in this landslide, flipped all the bellwether states, flipped all of the toss-up states that were going to indicate all the swing states that needed to go his way. He got them. And 215,000 people showed up in Kentucky to make sure that he was the nominee. And then you have this. And these are the tallies for the election that took place last week. Andy Barr got 283,720 votes as a senator in a primary in a year when there is no president and Donald Trump is not on the ballot. And Daniel Cameron got 144,000. And Michael Ferris, who's the dark horse, who's writing this post, got 11,215. And then you had 7,000 and 5,000, 4,800, almost 4,900, 37, almost 3,800, 3,750, 2,800, give or take, another 1,000 here and there. There were apparently, you can't see it on the screen here, but I can see it on mine, 469,000 total votes cast for a Senate race when there is no president on the list. 16,000 for Nikki Haley, 11,000 for Michael Ferris. And the bottom two people here that came out of the running, the number 3 and the number 4 position, exceeded the number of votes for Nikki Haley. And Donald Trump got blown out when it comes to the total number of ballots cast by the incumbent for Senate, because 283,720 people showed up to the polls statewide. If you believe that sort of thing, that's the same reason that you would believe that maybe someone got double the number that Tom Massie's primary in Kentucky 4 got double the number of voters compared to last year when Donald Trump was on the ballot too. Let me read his words real quickly so I don't misquote it. Nope. Not happening, didn't happen, not a chance. There is not a planet in this universe where it's even mathematically plausible, even if it was written and cast for a magical imagination film by Disney. Right? That's it. I don't believe them. I don't believe that there is such a thing as a primary that actually works. You can think what you like. I also see this kind of stuff. This is why I know how dumb people are and how dumb they will be. This is a guy named Forgiato Blow. He's a nice enough man. I had dinner with him one time with Dinesh D'Souza. I was remembering over the last couple of days, we were having a dinner with friends, and I was thinking about how strange the last couple of years have been for me and for my family, and the fact that that we helped shoot a movie about the police state and the GOP. Dinesh D'Souza and Daniel Bongino, they really lost a really important opportunity to get people to cross the aisle and understand what the problem was. I actually kind of knew they didn't understand the problem the way that they should because of the way they made that movie. So it's not surprising to me that he failed when he went to the FBI, was there for 292 days. This guy, Forgiato Blow, is a man full of face tattoos, which I guess look hard if you're like a rich white guy. It's a really strange choice. He wears all this kind of like blinged out rapper stuff. His grandfather founded Auto Trader, so he comes from a bunch of money. And he put this out here. This is from yesterday in the afternoon. I saw it this morning. Breaking. 7 of the FBI agents planted in the crowd on January 6th have agreed to turn state's evidence to avoid prosecution. So that's not a real thing. But 500,000 people saw it, and 38,000 people clicked that they liked it. Because we didn't get over the problem of January 6th, but what we're doing is we're still trotting it out there like there's going to be justice. And you're going to pretend that 7 agents planted in the crowd. Like there weren't likely 7 agents planted in the crowd. There were agents that were in that crowd, no doubt about it, but I think they actually supported Donald Trump. Because by and large, the people that worked in the job that I used to have are relatively conservative people. They just are. That's who believes in law and order. That's who signs up for the military. Those are the people that end up with those tattoos at the pool that went and served overseas and lost friends and dedicated their life to something that they thought was right. And many of them say that it's not anymore. Those kind of people that sign up for the FBI, generally speaking, at least they used to be. They're getting nudged out by women who believe in DEI stuff and think that they're the same, capabilities as the men around them. 7 agents were planted in that crowd. Well, I think there were probably a couple dozen agents that actually were there on their own time. It looked like a trap to me. I thought it was dumb. I talked people out of it. I have friends that were agents that were going to go and they were going to protest. It's probably not the best idea if you want to keep that job because it always looked like it was a joke. By the way, that was after Donald Trump had already, quote unquote, lost. And after all that happened, did he take care of those supporters on January 7th of 21 or January 15th of 21 or January 19th before he left the office? Did he? Nah. One of the things that we were supposed to see is we were going to see that there was a change in the intelligence agencies with transparency. We were going to admit the wrongdoings. We were going to expose the operations. We were going to shut down the Hoover building and open it up as a deep state memorial. Were we not? Was that not the whole point of the Trump 2.0? Like shut it down, straighten it out. And they put a really unlikely candidate in there, Tulsi Gabbard, who I would have had a lot of questions about until I read her life-changing moment. And I think it is life-changing when you realize that you believe in the system, because she was a Democrat. She ran for president as a Democrat. And so no one was more skeptical and suspicious of a Tulsi Gabbard than me. And I said it a lot. I mean, honestly, I knew people that were sort of like, oh, you gotta give her a chance. It's like, I don't need to give anybody anything. This woman was part of like the groups that were calling for assault weapons ban. And now she's out running around in the tactical games. What is this all about? What is this BS? She's running around in a plate carrier and acting like she's some kind of operator. Gross. I said it. And then I realized where the change took place. And I'm willing to accept that there was probably a real transformation because it is a transforming event. To believe in something, to show up and commit your life to it, to think that you have all the information and then see that machine, see that animal, see that government turn around and target you exactly the way they would target anybody else. And the ordinary men that you work with, and that's the ordinary men that we're talking about, like that are just, they're the good Americans, just like there were good Germans who just followed through on what the Nazis were about. When those people turn on you, like my friends who were in the FBI that came out of it, that went and waited for their friends to show up. Steve Friend famously said he was looking for that Avengers moment where he was going to look and hear that all these people showed up on his left to back up what he said. The reality of it is they do exactly what my boss did. And this happened in November of 2023. And he was like, you're right. This is wrong. What they're doing over COVID is inappropriate. But I got a mortgage. I got alimony. I got a transgender child I got to take care of. That's all true, by the way. So you're on your own, man. Tulsi Gabbard got to find out what that was like. And here's what's crazy. Tulsi Gabbard, this is the only article that I found in ABC, NBC, New York Times, CBS, Fox News. All of the major outlets have completely moved on from this. This happened on Friday. This is really, really major news that she is no longer going to be the director of national intelligence. And ABC is the only one that covered it in any way, shape, or form, and it wasn't in their top 10 stories. It was in their top 20. Tulsi got watch listed by the folks that were at TSA, by the Air Marshal Service. She was put on quiet skies, just like the J6ers were, because she was a problem for the regime. And that is a radicalizing moment. What's crazy is the administrator who nominated her to be on quiet skies, as far as I can understand it, and from my friends like Sonia Labasco, who's been pushing this, I specifically shared the name of the administrator that nominated Tulsi Gabbard to quiet skies, and I shared it with Joe Kent a few months ago. And he said he was going to look into it. You know what's crazy? To me, what's crazy is that Tulsi Gabbard no longer has a job. She's leaving. She's saying it's because of a sick husband who has bone cancer. That might be true. That might be a contributing reason. But I think if Tulsi Gabbard wants any political future, she had to leave. And so the question was, how do you exit gracefully? And she chose a very graceful exit. Good on her. She is a sophisticated political animal. Joe Kent chose the more overt version of it. Joe Kent is a different kind of warrior, I would say. Tulsi Gabbard worked in what? PsyOps. She's a female. They have a very different tactic. Joe Kent was an operator. And even though he was a sophisticated operator, I think he went for a frontal assault on what he said. He said, there is a problem. I'm willing to go and be the face of that problem, calling it out. And there is a lobby and a group of people from another nation that are not America first, that do not have the principles that you voted for theoretically, that you thought you were getting in November of 2024. And so he took that on head first. She took it on a little bit more obliquely. But there you have it. So she resigned. The article here says that Tulsi Gabbard is stepping down after her husband of 11 years, Abraham Williams, was recently diagnosed with an extremely rare form of bone cancer. It makes a lot of us who were questioning the shots and what they may do to people ask that question again. Extremely rare forms of cancer happen. That's why they're extremely rare. When public figures have them, it's sad, but it brings some awareness to it. It also makes us ask questions like, hey, she was on the side of people that were interested in getting that shot. Again, she had a transition later. I don't know if they did or not, but it's going to bring some of those things back into focus, at least for guys like me, because it makes me remember all the things that I had questions about. Election security, we didn't get it. Did we fix the problems at HHS and the CDC? I don't think so. In fact, there have been people who have already resigned, much lower level positions, who have said essentially the same exact thing that we're hearing from the higher level positions, which is reform cannot be done. The administration is not particularly interested in that reform. She wrote a letter. She said she faces major challenges in the coming weeks and months, so she's going to step away and she's going to work on that. I think these jobs tend to age you. What's wild is that there is no coverage of it. And she was in charge of OD&I. And I'm scrolling down here to grab this little picture. Actually, I'm grabbing this line. Gabbard was an unconventional pick to lead the sprawling network of 18 intelligence agencies with a $100 billion budget. That's what the United States intelligence community gets across all of the different things, from the National Geospatial Agency to the National Reconnaissance Organization to the FBI to your CIA, your NSA, et cetera, DIA, all of these different places, $100 billion budget to do spying and operations and intelligence. And she's leaving without that mission being done, because I don't think that mission could be done. Certainly not without a very strong hand coming in from the White House to say, we are going to make this happen. We are going to get what we said we were going to get. It seems like the White House priorities left. And so good for her for leaving. And I don't disagree, or I don't disbelieve the diagnosis and the cancer. I just think that it may not have been the primary reason, and she used it as an off-ramp, like so many people did, because she's smart. It's a smart off-ramp to say, I'm going to spend more time with family. That's the one we hear a lot. That's what Marshall Yates said when he left the FBI, knowing that the FBI was doing some shenanigans, probably for the J6 pipe bomb case and others. I'm going to spend more time with family is one, and I'm leaving for health reasons is another good one. What if you could combine them? I'm going to spend more time with family who have health problems. That's the Tulsi Gabbard one. Good on her. Again, I don't think that she's probably making that up. I don't know that that would be the thing that is the only reason. So that's my analysis of seeing this here without ever having talked to them. But good for her. Bad for us, it turns out. Let me play you Tim Dillon. He's a comedian. It turns out we have to go to comedians now to get the right answers. Just like you have to go to the Hodge twins to hear what's going on. And I've got a series of we're not voting our way out of it type clips, which is why I won't be voting in the primary today. And that's the primary story for me, is I'm sharing with you the logical train of where I've arrived at this decision. And you guys can believe anything you like. If you choose to believe like I do, if you choose to do what I'm doing, that's on you, okay? I'm not asking for it. I'm not advocating a position. I'm sharing a mentality. And maybe it helps change your mind, or it helps you better understand why you think the way you do. And that's it. While you guys are sitting here watching, if you're watching on Rumble, give us a like. We appreciate that. Same thing over on YouTube. We were off yesterday, so you're seeing the same link from yesterday. Sometimes I like to do that. Subscribe to the channels if you haven't done so already. I'd appreciate all of those things. And if you're listening on the audio platforms, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you may hear one of the campaign ads from something from the folks who host us, which is Spotify. You can follow us over there and get audio and video, which I think is a great way to do it. KyleSeraphinShow.com. It's the cheat code that'll take you to our Spotify link. Give that a look if you have not done so already. Now, we're going to make some arguments in the form of video clips. This is kind of the way that I like to use video clips. It's the reason why I spent a little extra time this morning grabbing them. Let's go through what we got versus what we were promised and check out some of the horrors that were involved in both sides of it.
It's the greatest con in history. By the way, it's the greatest con in history. I mean, truly. It's the greatest. And I don't say great in like a good way. It is truly the most successful con in history. It makes Enron look like a guy doing 3-card Monte on the street. Anything that you can remember and identify as a complete and utter scam, this is the greatest con in history. To run as an America first, and you're going to take care of America, and then turn around and go, you know, all of these things, daycare, Medicare, Medicaid, we have nothing to do with that. We're fighting wars. That's what we're here to do. We're here to have a defense budget of $1.5 trillion, and we're here to fight wars. It is the greatest scam in history. You got to hand it to him. And I mean, truly, and not in, you know, again, not in a moral way, but like you got to hand it to him. This is the greatest about face in political history that I have really ever seen.
What you're seeing on the screen right now is a protest scene done by Olivia Scootercast, freedomnews.tv, credit where it's due. They were out there filming in the rain in Newark, New Jersey, outside of an ICE facility. This is happening under Donald Trump's administration. You see this? They're blockading vehicles. They're filming the drivers. The drivers are wearing masks so that they can hide their identity, just like they did under Joe Biden, just like we saw happen in Minneapolis, where the mayor of Minneapolis yesterday, Jacob Frey, you remember that guy, the guy who was going to eventually end up like eaten by Somalis or something like that because he's been consumed by their culture. The mayor of Minneapolis yesterday wished everybody a happy George Floyd anniversary. This scene looks like it's something out of Joe Biden's America. This is Trump's ICE. This is Trump's Department of Homeland Security. And they're blocking it off. You want to see what it looks like up close? This is ICE actually giving in to protesters who have surrounded a facility, making a human chain. I swear to God, that woman says, I'm retarded. Actually, I'm going to play it for you one more time. I've listened to this like 20 times now, and I can't hear it. Ready? Listen.
Somebody needs to record.
Here it comes.
I'm retarded.
I'm retarded. We need to record in case there's violence. Okay? They're going to block the road. What did we vote for again? We voted for shutting down the border, priority number 1, and the largest deportation operation in American history. This woman, who's wearing some sort of like, I don't know, terrorist scarf on her head, is running up to inspect a government vehicle to decide whether or not it will be permitted to drive out. And she says, no, it's good. It's good. It's okay. They're not moving, whatever. There's a guy with a shirt that says Mexico on it. That's all banditoed up, shining his flashlight in, inspecting a government vehicle to allow it to pass from barricades that they have set up to block in a government vehicle. And your new DHS secretary is letting it happen. I mean, say what you want about Kristi Noem, but at least this didn't go on under her. She may have had a husband who was trying to have big boobs. She may have been a complete disaster who was trying to run for president by spending $250 million on hype ads for herself. But at least we didn't have these facilities like being surrounded and people acting like they had a right to be there and do this. So when I tell you that I don't think we're voting our way out of it. You've got a bunch of dudes that are basically falling in line, and they are allowing a surrounded government facility to operate in that way, which is why NPR is going to press the issue. This morning, their first story, their lead story for their national news was immigration courts using a new tactic to speed up deportations. Guys, you're going to be shocked to find out what that tactic is. The tactic is there's going to be a court date for you if you come to this country illegally and they hold a hearing to find out what to do with you. And if you don't show up to that court case, they're going to rule against you. Kind of like what happens in every single civil suit that I'm aware of. If you don't show up to it, they just rule against. They rule in favor of whoever the party is that did show up. What happens if the cops don't show up when you get a speeding ticket? They throw it out. There's no one there to stand in the place of the government. There's no witness. There's no case. If you don't show up to contest the proceedings, they're supposed to just rule against you. That's what's supposed to happen. You had a date. The judge is going to decide the case on that day, or they're going to do whatever the hearing is. You're not there. That's what happens. This is outrageous to NPR. And they're going to push the advantage in a new and unprecedented tactic that was shared with NPR by immigration attorneys. And there is a thing called this, the American Immigration Lawyers Association, a trade association that tracks trends in these courts. Now, these people like helping decent human beings that are trying to bring in, like, I don't know, a spouse or a green card holder that they're married to. They're trying to bring in their family from overseas or something like that. That maybe they were working for the State Department. Maybe they deployed as in the military and they met somebody. I don't know. This happened many times over all the years. Were they going to go and have that be the hill they die on? No, they're dying on the hill of illegal aliens. Immigration and immigrants are now being scheduled for massive master calendar hearings or mega masters that will include 100 people or more at a time. That's up from what used to be 2 or 3 dozen people at a time, which was typical for first hearings. And many immigrants, this will be their first appearance in court where they try to make their case about staying in the United States. The attorneys say these hearings are largely targeted to people who do not have lawyers representing them. If those people show up late or not at all, then they receive removal orders because they didn't do the thing. Wait a minute. So you showed up here without following through on what you're supposed to follow through on. You didn't come here legally, and then you don't follow the due process that you're crying about, and then you're wondering why you're going to get a deportation order? How about that? The major concern is that since this is going to be a group of people without lawyers, that they're not going to have gotten proper notice. Oh, well, maybe they should keep up with it because that's actually their job. You came here illegally. You're trying to make an argument of staying. And this is outrageous to NPR. But this is what Americans voted for. On both sides, in theory. Seal the border. Stop the mass migration invasion that was going on. Carry out the largest deportation operation. Not allow people to surround ICE facilities and do whatever the hell they want. I think people inside the political power movement have really lost the thread. People on the left, they're running around talking about abortion and how illegal people that have no right to be in America should have rights to America. That's pretty bizarre. That's a hell of a sell. They may get the protest vote, but I don't think they're earning it on its merit. And all the people that turned around and said in November of 24, like, we think Donald Trump is the guy, and they believe that they voted their way out of it. Here's the problem. If you believe that we don't actually vote or that it actually matters when you vote, then you have to justify, well, what happened in 24? And it's going to be my argument to you that there was a bleed-off valve where there was a recognized amount of societal pressure where people were going, oh, God, if we do not give the people the thing that they are asking for, at least the name that they're asking for, we better give them Donald Trump or they're going to drag us out in the streets and kill us. There was enough animus towards the establishment, towards the machine, towards what our government does, that people were like, we're ready to start breaking things. How many people said things about the spirit of 1776? You had freaking, not Dinesh, the other one, Vivek Ramaswamy. In 2024, a guy named Vivek Ramaswamy ran for president of the United States, and he was a plausible candidate, if you can believe that. And they said, no, we want Donald Trump. Give us what we want, or we start killing people, breaking things, tearing the system down brick by brick. And a lot of people showed up to try to make sure that last-ditch effort that it gets done without violence. And I think people recognize that. And so they're like, okay, fine, you can have Donald Trump. He's a figurehead. You can't have any of the reforms that you wanted. You're not going to be able to get the thing that you ask for. You're not going to get those 20 promises to the American people. Don't be ridiculous. but you get to look like you had a say. We're going to try to placate you just a little bit longer. So if you don't believe that elections are real, and there's pretty ample evidence numerically that they are just not making any sense at all. It's a poorly made argument, if an argument is even being made to begin with. But if you believe that they're not real, you have to try to justify, well, then what do these things mean? I think that the news cycles and I think that the election tallies are in league with each other. They're a long-term intellectual operation that frames events that are actually not that big of a deal, but are highlighted so you all know about them to help you to excuse outcomes that are actually going to benefit the people who are making those decisions. And that is just one guy intuiting what looks reasonable to me. Is it more likely that we have free, fair, and accurately represented elections? Or is it more likely that the proven psychological operations that take place in media and the flip-flopping, non-principled clowns that are out there presenting this information have given you enough in your brain for you to excuse the thing that you see happening, even though it doesn't agree with the reality that you think is actually out there? Do you know a ton of people that are advocating on behalf of illegal aliens to come into this country illegally and do things and then still violate the law and that they should get even more chances? No. You don't believe that because you don't know people like that. There's not enough people that you've met. There's a couple dozen people sitting out in front of an ICE facility. And do you know that when they do that thing, are they all arrested? They are not. We're going to have a discussion with Mike Shelby in the near future. And it'll probably be maybe next week, maybe the week after. He wrote a bit about warlordism and how that there are nominally people who hold power. And then the reality of power are actually held at a much more tribal level. And that America could very likely devolve into that, probably at a local level, maybe at a county level, maybe at the state level. And it's not a guarantee, but it's a possibility of what this would look like in this country if the national overreach continues to overreach and the house of cards falls down. And so is that something to be feared? Not really, because it is, in fact, probably one of the oldest forms of government. Local strongman who has roots in the population, in the people, and serves on behalf of those people at the will of the people, as long as they have sort of the ability to command the will of the people with force and might and legitimacy. We already know that stuff works, by the way, and the left has proven it. The left proved it with the sanctuary city movement, which I think this surrounding an ICE facility is an outgrowth of. Sanctuary cities are local areas saying, screw you, federal government, screw you, maybe state government. We're going to do what we want with our police force because they live here and they answer to us. It's a local triumphing over federal and probably state law. And they've proven that they can do it because they exist and they haven't been destroyed. And they exist in big ways, places like Los Angeles or New York City. So sanctuary areas have proven to you that resisting the federal government doesn't equal everybody goes to jail and they're destroyed. What they prove is that the federal government's ability to control and command things is basically an illusion. If you believe it's real, then it continues to happen. And if everybody decides that, no, we're not doing this, we're not going to do this charade anymore. We're not voting in primaries. We don't think they're real. We're not voting in real elections. We don't think they're real. Then they're not. They're as real as everybody allows them to be. And there's a whole bunch of people who thought they were getting something, who showed up because they believed in something in November of 24. And those people are becoming increasingly disillusioned. Here's a little discussion between Rick Barish and Tucker Carlson.
From what is coming from the right now. I think people don't fully appreciate, especially millennial men who supported Donald Trump, Generation Z men who supported Donald Trump. They don't appreciate that these voters, many of them never voted. They have no vote history or very little vote history. Came out for Donald Trump in 24 because they believed that he and J.D. Vance were really their last chance at getting to right the ship in the country and to have a future that people who lived before them had, right? Their inheritance was being squandered. The economy's just garbage. It costs too much to live. There's no point to go to school. Nobody is appreciating that they have this point of view. And now they look, for better, for worse, fair or not, they look at Israel with a little bit of contempt now because they feel like they derailed their presidency. They kind of hijacked it. And they're going to, whether you agree with that or not, it's kind of irrelevant. That's how they feel. And if you don't address it, it's just going to blow up in your face, because 10 years from now, the first boomers turned 80 this year, Tucker. 10 years from now, if Republicans can't put together a coalition like the one that supports Thomas Massie, you're not going to win a general election from what is coming from the right now. I think people don't fully appreciate, especially millennial men who supported.
All right, I looped it. So there's pollsters and political pundits. How about people who have money that put $50,000 worth of their own cash, which is an awful lot of money? That's more money than I will ever donate in all my life to any political candidate, guaranteed. Guaranteed, because I don't believe in them enough. I would never, under any circumstances, probably have enough money to think that $50,000 would ever be something I would write to a politician. And yet, people did. And those people are disillusioned as well. Not just the people who work in the trades, not just the blue collar types, not just the regular guy that wants to be left alone. How about people that were involved in the system?
So I think this marks the end of an era, certainly. Some people have said the end of the Republican Party. I think it's certainly the end of the Republican Party as we know it. And it is a pivotal time for America. I think it's a bad time. The idea that a foreign country can just buy a congressional seat in Kentucky or buy a primary is terrible for America, and everybody should recognize that. Unfortunately, voters are easy to fool. That's why marketing works. That's why there's billions of dollars spent on political campaigns, because the spending is very predictable. They know to the dollar how much a vote will cost. And if they can get in front of you by buying lots and lots of television ads, the voters that sit and watch television all day will be influenced by those ads. That's why ads work. That's why Coke and Pepsi and McDonald's and Burger King and insurance companies and everybody else spend so much money on television ads. They work, they're effective, and they change behavior. And in the case of elections, they change votes.
That's Bruce Fenton. If you guys have not seen him, that's his handle over on X, at Bruce Fenton, Fenton. I've been watching some of the stuff he's said. I've been watching his disillusionment with this problem. Ads work. Yep, they do. Including when they're lies, including when they're completely fake and they're made up. And this is one of the claims and the problems that that Tom Massie had with what went on during his primary. There was a really, really nasty ad that many of you may not have seen, especially if you don't sit and tune into this kind of garbage. They ran an ad that indicated that Tom Massie had some sort of threesome with Ilhan Omar and AOC using AI. And my concern is, because guys like Ryan Matta and Bobby Sauce, both of whom have been, on this program, they were on the ground and they had people actually say, we believe, like, it wasn't a lot of people, but there were people that actually said, we believe that Tom Massie had a sexual tryst with those two Democrats. Based on this, I think the ad's going to be on here. This is Tom Massie talking about it. If you can just run an unlimited number of lies on television, and it works, and that's going to be less and less the case, I think. But this is pretty crazy stuff. And if you can do that with $20 million and you can take a seat from an otherwise constitutional principled, you don't have to believe he's the best man in the world. You don't have to think that he's a good person even. You can just look at the voting record, and the things that he objected against were things that are worth objecting against if you're a conservative. And we don't have a conservative party. We have a Republican Party. And the Republican Party is not conservative at all, even if they still try to make that conflation, which we talked about on Friday. Here's Massie making the case about running a bunch of ads and how dumb people are. Because people are dumb, it turns out, folks. They just are.
They used artificial intelligence to create a video, lifelike video, that showed me checking into a hotel room with AOC and Ilhan Omar and holding hands with them. It was actually very effective on the boomers. But here's the thing, Kristen, that's only going to work for a little bit longer. The boomers are going to, leave this country to the Gen X and the Gen Z and the Gen Y and the millennials. And those folks are the ones that I won overwhelmingly. That makes me really hopeful for for this country. They don't get fooled by artificial intelligence, and they check the news. They get news sources like from podcasts and other sources. So they won this race by fooling my voters and expanding the base of people who vote to the uninformed voters.
Okay, terrific. So here's CBS News reporting. Here's what to watch in the Texas primary election. Not only did we have the most expensive House primary in history, we now have the most expensive Senate primary in history as well. This is not a good trend. This is not a trend that says that there's some sort of like the best candidate's going to win. It's going to be who puts the most money in front. The most expensive Senate primary in history will finally come to a close on Tuesday when Texas Republicans choose, if you believe those sort of things, between incumbent John Cornyn and current State Attorney General Ken Paxton in the runoff. There are other races as well, including runoff on the ballot for Attorney General, State Railroad Commissioner, and a number of congressional races. And I'm confident the Texas GOP will get exactly who they hope to get out of these races, whatever that looks like. Donald Trump has now gone out and decided to endorse the opponent, Paxton, the challenger, not the incumbent Cornyn. The machine has mobilized and been like, oh, crap, like what's going on with that? So you're seeing a lot of people coming out for Cornyn. John Cornyn was first elected in 2002. He was the top vote getter in a three-way primary, but he didn't get 50%, so they have to do this runoff so they could spend more money. No Democrat has won a statewide office in Texas since 1994. I mean, I lived in Texas in 1994. I remember when that was. That was the turning point, apparently, for Texas, which used to be a pretty Democrat thing. But guess what? They were also fairly reasonable. They also weren't people who were like, we need an open border. They believed in catching illegal aliens. They believed in punishment. They believed in, in criminal justice system reform. They didn't believe that men could become women. There's a lot of things that the Texas Democrat Party used to be pretty sensible on. They didn't run on abortion. We had governors like Governor Ann Richards. They were sensible-ish people, like we were arguing on how to do things well or better. We didn't argue on whether or not like America was a good place or whether the values that Americans would have were reasonable, whether or not like we should have unlimited numbers of people coming in over the border, or whether America should be a dominant energy producer, whether we should be importing millions of Indians to come in and take jobs because Texans can't handle them, that kind of stuff. You wouldn't have had somebody like go up toe to toe and say, you believe in defending the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That means you're probably racist. And we don't think that freedom of speech is acceptable. And we don't think that your religion is worth having at all. Like you would have never seen an anti-Christian Texas statewide office campaign. Never. You could easily see that today. In fact, you kind of have like anti-Christian types that are just skewing what the Bible means. The James Tallarico types are going to go take a run at it. It's pretty crazy. How about prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and the Middle East? I'm reading number 8 off Donald Trump's agenda to us. This is the reason why people were like, okay, we don't need to do violence. We don't need to tear this country up and rip it down and build it back up again in the image of what it was meant to be. We don't have to do that. Our guy got in. So it's going to be fixed. It's going to be fine. This is what Donald Trump ran on. And this is why I think Tulsi Gabbard's not there now.
I am the candidate of peace. I am peace. People don't believe that. I am peace.
A vote for Donald Trump is a vote for a man who wants to end wars, not start them.
We do not want war with Iran. We actually want peace. The Iranians are clearly not very good at war. Perhaps they should follow President Trump's lead and give peace a chance.
Kamala's campaigning with warmongers like Liz Cheney. How do you think that is? She picks Liz Cheney, whose father virtually destroyed the Middle East. Liz Cheney, she talks big, oh, I want war. She always wants war. Every time I was with her in the White House, we should attack this nation, that nation, nations that people never even heard of, we should attack. She's a big tough guy. She sits back in Washington, oh, we ought to go and attack Iran, Iraq. We're going to attack everybody. That's why I broke up with her. All she wanted to do is go to war with everybody. These war hawks, they want to draft your kids to die in wars. and they will never fight themselves.
You know, we'll stay around the country for 15 years, just bomb the hell out of everybody, make everybody miserable. Nobody knows why we're there, you know, the wars that never end. These endless wars that we've been in, I've gotten us out of so many. We don't want to get into wars.
We're tired of fighting. I'm the only president in the last 84 years that didn't start a war. Under Trump, we will have no more wars.
No more wars. No more wars.
We will have prosperity and peace. We will have prosperity and we will have peace.
Remember, I'm the president of peace. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars.
He's going to start a war. I said, no, no, no. My rhetoric is going to keep us out of wars. And that's what happened.
My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective.
It's the greatest con in history. By the way, it's the greatest con in history. I mean, truly. It's the greatest, and I don't say great in like a good way. It is truly the most successful con in history. It makes Enron look like a guy doing three-card Monte on the street. Anything that you can remember and identify as a complete and utter scam, this is the greatest con in history. To run as an America first, and you're going to take care of America, and then turn around and go, you know, all of these things, daycare, Medicare, Medicaid, we have nothing to do with that. We're fighting wars.
How about maybe the most important thing on there, which is to say that it wasn't a fair system. The guy who claimed it wasn't fair, who says that he got screwed out of an election, was going to do something about election security. And if you want any more proof that nothing can get done, that can't solve this problem, then all you have to do is look down and see that they can't do it. Number 19, secure the elections, same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, proof of citizenship. Right? Or you can believe this. Or you can believe that maybe 215,000 people showed up in November, or well, I guess it was May, in May of 2024. 215,000 people in Kentucky showed up to vote for Donald Trump, but 469,000 people showed up to vote for an off-year Senate contested primary, right? What was that again? It's like, if they doubled it, it'd be 430. It's more than double the turnout showed up in a midterm for a primary for people who don't have national recognition. Andy Barr and Daniel Cameron. What does this guy say? What does Ferris say? You don't have secure elections, and I'm not sure how you ever will, because we sure as hell aren't going to see it. And guess what? We actually had this discussion. Go ahead and pass the SAVE Act, and you would see people back away from this contested primary, and John Cornyn could say, do the right thing. Make it happen. Did it happen? Nah. Nope. Does the Senate want that? They do not. What do they want? War. When do they want it? Now. Let's do that in 1 second here. I'm going to do my favorite, Mark Levin. Love Mark Levin. The great one, Mark Levin. Guys, if you're watching on Rumble, like it. Same thing, YouTube. If you hear an ad from the folks on Spotify right now, that means you're listening to one of the audio platforms, and you should be listening to Spotify. Make sure you're subscribed over there, because you can leave comments on each show, and I'd appreciate it if you guys would. Let's do Mark Levin. I want to go to Iran. And what I want to see, I think we should bomb them. We need to get rid of the regime. Everybody in Iran should be dead, but not the people of Iran. Here we go.
My view is simple. This regime needs to be defeated. And I'll leave it to the experts to figure out, but there are general things that need to be done. Number one, militarily, there's more that needs to be done. And we kind of stopped about 3/4 of the way through. Economically, that strait needs to be open, so they need to be choked. And there are choke points along there that could literally destroy the Iranian economy.
Well, hold on to that thought. There are choke points that could destroy the Iranian economy. By the way, he's on Channel 14 Israel right now. So he's speaking to Israeli television, not American television.
Even more than it is now. But number three, my view again is we need to arm the Iranians. To suggest that they rise up with their bare hands again, they've demonstrated they are courageous people, they are strong people. You know, I think about what took place in the founding of the State of Israel when the Israelis, the Jews, were attacked by the Arabs who would not accept the partition. And there were a lot of arms, perhaps not enough, but a lot of arms that were secreted into the Jewish forces, the Israeli forces, to fight back.
Couple interesting things in here. Number one, Mark Levin does the thing that we keep hearing, and I guess this is just how they think, but this, and they being people who are Zionist, they keep conflating Jewish and Israeli, even though the people who defend Israel constantly tell you that there are Christians there and there are Christians that serve in their legislative bodies, that there are Muslims there and those they can serve in and it's not just a Jewish nation, it's a nation for all people, and it's a nation that's a liberal democracy that's in the Middle East and no one else is like it and everybody can be part of it. But then you hear him say it and he's like, the Jewish, I mean the Israeli, I mean the Jewish forces, I mean they took care of the Jews, I mean the Israelis, I mean the Jews. So they conflate that same garbage. No wonder they think that if you are saying someone like, hey, I don't think we should give money to Uganda, I don't think we should give money to Nigeria, I don't want to take money and give it to the Philippines, I don't really give a shit about what's happening in Tanzania, I don't care about what's happening in South America, and by the way, I also don't want to give any of our money to Israel. And they'd be like, you're anti-Semitic! Why? Oh, because you also do that thing in your head. Like, I don't. I assume that you're a foreign nation. That's not me. I'm a bacon cheeseburger nationalist. I think if you don't eat cheese and meat together and you don't eat bacon, then like you're not me. You're not my tribe. I don't give a shit what happens to you. I don't care at all until my country is squared away. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go and be like, hey, my house needs painting and my fence is falling down and my cars are on blocks in the front yards, but I'm going to go mow your lawn because that's what seems really important to me. In fact, I'm going to spend every single weekend making sure that I mow your lawn. Like, screw your lawn, dude. Not interested. So remember, we need to do more choke points because our blockade could completely destroy the economy of Iran. If only we actually got real information. Here's 60 Minutes giving us an alternative point of view.
And this past week, Smith and his team made a surprising discovery that Iran has exported daily 100,000 more barrels of oil than it did before the war, most of it going to China. Smith says 9 Iranian oil tankers have traveled through the Strait of Hormuz by turning off transponders that reveal locations. Thursday, on Iran State TV, the first public statement from the country's new supreme leader was read, saying, quote, the leverage of blocking the Strait of Hormuz must continue.
Maybe we should just arm the Iranian people. That's never gone wrong before, has it? Didn't we back Saddam Hussein against Iran previously? I mean, there's plenty of great examples in history where we just don't really know what we're doing and we meddle in and then we arm a side and then we end up, what do? Oh, we end up almost always fighting the side that we armed at some point. How many American weapon systems and how many American installed regimes have we turned around and tried to depose? The track record is pretty impressive, actually. It would be easier to find out which successful coups we backed that we didn't have to fight, I think. So maybe we just stop the meddling and do the thing that you ran on, which was like, I don't know, put America first. Craziness. Go figure. How about tax cuts? How about the Bill of Rights? How about not any new wars? Didn't he run on that?
They want to draft your kids to die in wars, and they will never fight themselves.
Our president will start a war with Iran because he has absolutely no ability to negotiate. He's weak and he's ineffective. Isn't it pathetic?
We do not want war with Iran. We actually want peace.
If I'm elected president, we are going to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C.
My plan will cut energy prices in half or more than that. That means we're going down and getting gasoline below $2 a gallon.
Our country, starting on day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again.
Yes, we will make housing much more affordable as inflation is tamed.
A vote for Trump means your groceries will be cheaper.
A vote for Donald Trump is a vote for a man who wants to end wars, not start them.
Nations do not want to fight endless wars. We're getting out of the endless wars. We have to do it.
No new war. We don't need the wars. Foreign lands, countries you've never heard of, countries that don't even want us there.
We will keep America out of foolish, stupid, ridiculous foreign wars. The plan is to get out of endless wars, to bring our soldiers back home, to not be policing agents all over the world.
We were crazy what we did. We had these endless wars that go on for 21, 22 years, spending billions and billions of dollars.
You know, we'll stay around the country for 15 years, just bomb the hell out of everybody, make everybody miserable. Nobody knows why we're there, you know, the wars that never end.
These endless wars that we've been in, I've gotten us out of so many.
We don't want to get into wars. We're tired of fighting. I'm the only president in the last 84 years that didn't start a war. Under Trump, we will have no more wars. No more wars. No more wars. We will have prosperity and peace. We will have prosperity and we will have peace. Remember, I'm the president of peace. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. He's going to start a war. I said, no, no, no. My rhetoric is going to keep us out of wars. And that's what happened. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker. That's what I want to be, a peacemaker. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into.
2 wars, Venezuela, where we lost nobody, and here we lost 13 people.
And I say this, I will end that war in one day. It'll take 24 hours. I know Zelensky well. I know Putin well. What I think you should do, if you're going to do it, then you have to go into Epstein's friend. Still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years.
Favors were sold for cash.
I have to say, Miriam, I watched Sheldon sitting so proud in the White House when we gave Miriam the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That's the highest award you can get as a civilian. It's the equivalent of the Congressional Medal of Honor, but civilian version. It's actually much better because everyone gets the Congressional Medal of Honor. That's soldiers. They're either in very bad shape because they've been hit so many times by bullets, or they're dead. She gets it, and she's a healthy, beautiful woman. It's very... And they're rated equal. I have to...
Oh, that was Donald Trump talking about the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which he awarded to Miriam Adelson, who gave his campaign $250 million per his estimation, who ran a pretty aggressive campaign against Tom Massie, contributed to it heavily. She got the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which Donald Trump said is better than the Medal of Honor. Now, that was trending around on social media yesterday, and so I looked into it because I was kind of curious. I'm like, why is this popping up? I know I've seen that before. He gave her the Medal of Freedom in 2018 in the first term. And so I thought, well, maybe this was just something he presented and said when he was just mouthing off in his first term. No, it turns out that actually came from August of 2024 when he was on the campaign trail. And you'll notice that he had the American flag and the Jewish flags behind him, or the Israeli flag, whatever, the Jewish Star of David Israeli flag standing behind him. And he's talking about how it's better to get the Medal of Freedom from the president, which is given out to people like Oprah and Ellen DeGeneres and other useless human beings that don't have anything to do with anything, who didn't do anything valorous necessarily. And it's better because you weren't shot or killed. It does kind of tell you, didn't he say he was going to get us out of these wars because people send our children to war and they never would go themselves? You know, this kind of guy?
My view is simple. This regime needs to be defeated.
And I'll leave it to the people. And I will make sure that the people who know about the military and all the ways of me fighting the regime in Iran, we should arm them. They can't go out there and fight on their own.
Where's your kid, man? Does your kid want to go fight? Oh, he wants to be a producer for Levin Media? What about you? Did you fight? You do anything? No? You sign up? You didn't? Cool. Maybe shut the fuck up. These people. Donald Trump, got any kids in the military? Your son looks like he's the right age. He's big, he's strong, he's healthy, he's rich, he's good looking. Send him to West Point. Why don't you make a man out of him? You want to do that? You want to put your money where your mouth is? Maybe. I mean, even the Kennedys knew that you had to do stuff like that. Send your kids, get some bona fides. You want to step into the political space? You want to step into the American political class? Go show us that you're not just a rich kid. Donald Trump didn't have to do that. His kids probably should have if they wanted to step in. Show me that you got some skin in the game. Show me you know what it's like to be a 21-year-old in charge of a 45 or a 48-year-old salty chief or senior, master sergeant or a sergeant major who's got no time for your academic bullshit that means nothing to him. Just, go learn how to deal with people who've been there and done that. Not going to happen. Luckily, we've got some of these prostitutes that will tell you exactly what the party is about. Again, we're having a GOP primary that I will not be paying attention to. And I don't really care what happens in it, to be fair. We're going to find out what it is, but we'll find out that it means whatever the party wanted. Here's Ben Shapiro telling you about that party. And I don't think you get to vote your way out of it when someone is telling you this. And this guy still has an audience. It's a lot bigger than this one. Maybe he's saying something right, or maybe he's just selling the bullshit that people want to hear.
Well, the future of the GOP, the Republican Party, was up for grabs in Kentucky's 4th congressional district last night. It was the most expensive House primary race in history and a bellwether for what comes next inside the GOP. Thomas Massie versus President Trump, online versus reality, woke right versus traditional Trump right. And Trump won. And reality won. Turns out the future still belongs to the rational right. It belongs to President Trump inside the Republican Party, so long as President Trump is president.
He called it the rational right. The rational right in 2026 is the liberal left of 1997. So in 30 years, the people who were Democrats, who were going to be the end of all things, who represented, I don't know, like Bill Clinton type policies, those people are considered conservative today. They still mouth the platitudes that it's conservative. Here's Mike Johnson saying, what is this party? What is the GOP? And then he says, what is conservatism? As though they're the same. In the same way that I hear people say, like, what is Israel and what is the Jews? Then conflating them, and they're not the same thing, especially not the people who are discriminating listeners. But you guys are going to be able to hear it. Watch him conflate the Republican Party, which has failed on its agenda that it ran on, that I didn't make it run on. It ran on it because they knew that's where Americans actually were going to outsource their rage and frustration, which would have resulted in violence in 24. And they're acting like they're still doing it. And they're acting like they're still doing it while there are people that are setting up checkpoints outside of government buildings and deciding whether or not the federal government's anti-immigration, illegal immigrant task forces are able to actually do their own work. And they're going to let some representative teenage child come up and do inspections of government vehicles trying to leave a federal facility doing federal business. This is how I know local warlordism will happen in some areas, and it'll get away with it because they're already doing it right here. This is warlord type culture where we set up a turnpike and you can only leave if we say so. And they're not even none of these people are armed. They're like fat women that are under the age of 30. They're childless cat ladies and like dudes who are trying to hook up with childless cat ladies. These are not men of violence or capabilities. These are children who have been, pampered for far too long and need to be spanked even as adults. Anyway, let's do Mike Johnson real quick. Because he said it, we played it last week. I think it's worth playing over and over again. They should actually have to answer for their own words.
What is the Republican Party? What is American conservatism? What is the Republican Party? It's individual.
What is the Republican Party? What is American conservatism? What is the Republican Party? As though they are the same thing. They are not the same freaking thing. Mike Johnson. Smithers. Okay, well, what are they saying to you, sir? Are they saying boo? Are they booing you, sir? No, boo. They're not booing you. They're saying boo earns. Boo earns, Mr. Burns. He's the perfect, pathetic, sniveling weasel to represent this kind of like ridiculous conflation that nobody has to buy if they're a thinking person. I just played you several minutes of what Donald Trump actually ran on. Watch this guy try to bullshit you.
Freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity. I don't ask much more of anybody, but you got to hold the core principles that made us the greatest nation in the history of the world.
Let's hear those again.
Republican Party. What is American conservatism? What is the Republican Party? It's individual freedom, limited.
Okay, individual freedom would be protection of things like the Bill of Rights. You're not doing that. In fact, there are actually arrests happening right now for people speaking in ways. You're actually having a Republican Party that has been championing things about hate speech and anti-Semitism, even though those are not actual big problems in this country because they represent a fraction of anything.
Limited government, the rule of law.
Limited government? Show me an example of Mike Johnson going for limited government. He can't even get single issue appropriations bills through, which is what he promised in November of 2023. We're now 3 years past that, 2.5 years past that. He's never actually been able to go through a single one of these things.
It's individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity.
I think peace through strength is a funny one. Shouldn't that be when you decide to have strength so you don't have to actually go use it? Or should we have a bullshit bombing campaign that's in the middle of a so-called ceasefire? And so here is the top story, I guess, of today, because it was on every single major outlet, and it's not particularly interesting. Iran is accusing the United States of violating the ceasefire. It threatens retaliation after new strikes because the Americans actually, it seems like, probably violated the ceasefire, and maybe the Iranians did first, but it doesn't matter because how do you have a ceasefire when people are actually firing rounds and missiles and going back and forth in an armed conflict? I thought a ceasefire meant that you don't fire. Now, maybe I'm just ignorant because I've been time on training range where you say ceasefire and then everybody stops shooting. And then if you say the range is cold, that means people put their weapons away. I love seeing some of this stuff that comes out online because of the propaganda that John Solomon ran. When someone says ceasefire, that's the end of the shooting. If you shoot after someone calls ceasefire, you usually face disciplinary action. If you're in a civilian range, you get thrown off the range. Your privileges get revoked. How do you have a ceasefire where people are still shooting? American forces committed a violation of the ceasefire in the Hormuz region over the past 48 hours. That's what Tehran's ministry says. The U.S. says strikes on boats and missile launchers were self-defense, so they're claiming that the Iranians were doing it. Are we really in a ceasefire, or are we just trying to make up like we have a ceasefire, when in reality, we're just fighting like low-intensity conflicts while everyone's trying to figure out whether or not we can sell some bullshit idea that we've somehow created a peace negotiation when there's some non-negotiables that are not on the table. And we've said that they have to be on the table, and they said they aren't. I don't know where this goes other than endless war, which, by the way, is exactly what he said he wasn't going to do. Iran accused the United States Tuesday of a, quote, clear violation of the ceasefire between the two countries after the U.S. launched what it called defensive strikes that threatened to disrupt the intensifying talks at the end to end this war. U.S. military said it launched defensive strikes that included missile launch sites and Iranian boats attempting to emplace mines. So they were trying to drop mines, and we were deciding to attack the people dropping mines, and nobody knows what a ceasefire means because nothing means what it means. Just like America First means that you're going to take care of other things like still give out foreign aid. And getting government efficiency means you're going to shut down Doge and not codify it. And free and fair and safe elections means you're going to just ignore it and then act like it's good because Donald Trump got elected, maybe, or got selected, more likely. These renewed attacks came after Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters in India that a deal could be finalized in a couple of days. We've heard that basically since this started. And that negotiators were down to disagreements over a word or a sentence. Yeah, that word or sentence, we don't know what that is, but it's probably going to be really critical. Like, you can't have any nuclear material. And they're going to be like, we're going to have nuclear material. That's an impasse. Iran has been much more guarded about its progress on talks, issued a strongly worded statement Tuesday denouncing the U.S. strike, saying it contravened the 7-week pause in fighting, which, by the way, doesn't seem like it's been a 7-week pause in fighting because we've covered it here and there continues to be fighting at some level over the last 7 weeks. The American forces have committed a violation of the ceasefire in the Hormuz region over the past 48 hours. Iran holds the American regime responsible for all consequences arising from these hostile actions. Without any doubt, there's no act of aggression unanswered. And we will not hesitate to defend the dignity of Iran and its people. Once again, when you start going after people in their own space, you find out that they can fight for a really long time. How do we know that? We've done forever wars with a bunch of different people. And they're still not America. They're hostile to us the second we leave. Somebody was pointing out to me, like, you can't fight the American government with just like your AR-15. They have drones and they have all this AI stuff and like all these problems, like that they could destroy you in a heartbeat. It's like, really? Tell that to the people of Afghanistan. We fought them for 20 years. We completely defeated them militarily. And when we pulled our occupying force out, they took the country back within a week. And they killed 13 of our Marines and our Navy corpsmen. No problem. They didn't mind. They just waited. You couldn't even conquer like Tennessee with the American government. Couldn't happen, I don't think. I think you turn around and see the amount of people that are inside this military, just enough of them would turn around and destroy the capabilities. It's a problem. It's a problem that we're being lied to on such a regular basis, and people are acting like this is real. Let's do another story. This is New York Times covered it. Front page. Top story. Iranian war. Live updates. Tensions rise. Iran threatens to retaliate against U.S. strikes, but we're totally in a ceasefire, guys. The United States is doing strikes, and they're dropping mines, and we're totally in a ceasefire, if you believe these kind of things. I'll link this if you guys want to read the story in a free from paywall type of way. This is also kind of funny, because one of the things that was in there was de-weaponized government. This was in the 20 promises that Trump made to the American people. De-weaponized government. What happens? You have to actually fight it. Who were the people that were de-weaponizing government and working on it? Joe Kent, Tulsi Gabbard. Who are the people that are defending government with everything they have? Kash Patel, Daniel Bongino, immediately captured by the machine. This is a story from the New York Times that I think is actually worth reading if you guys want to take your time. It's written by Alan Fuhr. I should learn how to pronounce Alan's name. I've texted with him a few times. I don't know how to say it. As Trump politicizes the Department of Justice, prosecutors struggle with grand juries. Because in our system, you not only have to be able to bring whatever it is that the government wants to do, you actually got to convince enough people to go along with it. Judges and grand juries have increasingly lost faith in the Justice Department. Is that because that they are super right-leaning and they care about the rights? No, they were totally happy with indicting people for January 6th. But how many people, left and right, are going to get sick of this stuff? And the left tends to get what it needs. You need to have a quorum of people that vote on these grand juries that are going to give you a true bill. Not going to happen. Grand juries have increasingly lost faith in the Justice Department as the president uses it to reward his friends and go after his opponents. And amusingly, this is why you see the media act the way that it does. This story stands alone on its own. We'll probably talk about the entirety of it another time. Just wanted to show you kind of like what top stuff was. By the way, one of my favorite little stories was Fox News letting us know where their situation is. Fox News wanted you to know that Iran's proxy war has crossed oceans and it's knocking on America's door. Because if one war is good, two wars is probably better, right? And what are they talking about? Cuba. We need to make sure that we understand that we don't just deal with Iran and its capabilities there. We have to also worry about whether it goes and touches Latin America. So how many more wars can we get going? I mean, basically, if we can get any war, Fox News is going to be pretty excited. The war boner boomer crowd is super into it. Anytime. So let's pivot over real quickly, and we're going to talk about media and the media whores that are rewarded by this stuff. It's not just like, oh, Trump like helps out the people with the DOJ that are his people. It turns out that this sort of like access-based media environment where if you want a scoop, if you want a story, if you want favorable treatment, if you don't want to get Donald Trump out there telling the mean MAGA people what's up, if you don't want to get canceled, you have to play ball with the administration. And you have to do what they want you to do. You have to publish the statements that they say. One of the craziest things that I saw was that the current DOJ's spokespeople were pissed that their entire statement was not run in an article in which I was quoted. So I was reading the article, and I don't remember what it was about. It doesn't matter. And DOJ and I think FBI specifically issued a statement, and the author of the piece basically summarized FBI's statement back in response to the allegations we made. And then they got like an earful and nonstop phone calls from the DOJ and the FBI's press offices saying, you didn't run our whole statement, because they actually don't believe in the Bill of Rights. They actually think that they have a right to tell you what to think because that's how the system works. That's why AI is effective for certain people that are dumb. This is why this government basically decides whether or not you're going to be successful. And that's kind of what fascism is, to be fair. I mean, all the left was crying about fascism. All that is private ownership with a heavy government influence. And we see that in the media. The media is more involved in a sort of fascistic model than almost any other industry I'm aware of. I think defense probably has a similar thing too. So we'll get there in 1 second here. Big thanks to the folks that sponsor our program. Guys, you guys are the ones who help sponsor the program by visiting any of our sponsors. So if you haven't done so already, there's a link below that'll take you to secure it. If you guys are interested in storing your weapons the way that I do, which is a really safe and good way to do it, you can also see people like Silent, and you can see Patriot Protect, and you can see Undertac, and some of the others that sponsor us. Check into them. There's a link right here. There's a QR code if you're watching on a TV and you want to scan and get there. It'll take you to a post over at KyleSeraphin.com, which is our locals account, and it's just all the people that you may have heard here. If you're ever looking for an advertiser and you're like, hey, like I heard this thing, like where is it? I get DMs like this like almost every week. Hey, you advertise with this person, like where do I find them? This is where you find them. It's the link post. It's always in the show description on every single one of our shows. And you may also hear an ad from the folks over at Spotify right now. So make sure you guys have liked on Rumble and YouTube and subscribe, etc. You'll hear a KyleSeraphinShow.com audio ad. All right. Should we do some horrors? I played you Ben Shapiro already. This is the audience that wants to hear people say exactly what Donald Trump says in the moment that Donald Trump says it. This is coming from a Surrendered episode. This is like the Jubilee style podcast where a bunch of people sit around and then one smart person just debates like 20, and it's not that hard. This smart person in this case is Glenn Greenwald, who's kind of a creep for whatever it's worth. Glenn Greenwald is a homosexual guy that lived down in, I think, Brazil, had a husband that died of some creepy infection. Pretty gross. There's not a lot that I would agree on, probably morally, ethically, or certainly not in terms of like family values with Glenn Greenwald, but he also is correct when he's arguing against the Trump administration in this particular little bit. And it triggered a guy in a MAGA hat who's sweating profusely. This guy looks like exactly what you think, an automaton who absolutely loves Donald Trump, and whatever Donald Trump says is exactly his new position. If Donald Trump said today that AR-15s were evil, and you must turn in your FRTs, this guy would be in line to hand them over to the cops. Okay. And there's a lot of those people. We found them out under the bump stock ban. They were the people that were like hacksawing their bump stocks. And they're like, if Donald Trump says they're bad, they're obviously bad. Instead of saying like, F you, we believe in limited government. We believe in financial conservatism. We believe in non-interventionist policies. We believe in peace through strength. You know, the shit that Mike Johnson would say are the positions of the Republican Party, but are not. Here's a guy giving you kind of a taste of what I don't know, what does Steve Friend call him? A mega Doppler magatard kind of dude.
Are you jealous of that? Or like because he's president? Is that jealousy or something? Are you jealous of that? Trump is not corrupted at all. We're not in a war as well. Sorry, there's so many. I wanted to answer you on so many things, but you're not being specific about how it's Trump, his administration corrupted. What exactly? Because his kids aren't the administration. It's just Donald Trump. So how is...
Well, Hunter Biden wasn't the Biden administration, but it was just the president's
I don't care about Joe Biden. I want to go on. You're saying Trump, okay? Trump administration. How is he more corrupt? Are you aware that Trump never has took his presidential checks? Are you aware that he's given up all...
Yes, that's congratulations.
Oh, that's just $400,500. That's it. Okay. Are you aware that he's given up all his everything he owns?
Trump's an infinitely richer man now than he was when he saw the presidency in 2016. Are you jealous of that?
Or like because he's president?
That guy just pivoted, by the way, from saying he gave up everything to saying he's infinitely richer, which he's like basically doubled or tripled his net worth since he became president. And this guy has a MAGA hat on, and he's got a MAGA hat that's on his belt loop. Somebody said this guy is representing meth heads for Trump. He's representing people that do exist out there. At least I see them online. Maybe they're just bots. Maybe this guy's a human version of a bot. But this guy's not well. This guy is basically what I see from most of the left. What's left of the sort of non-honest MAGA coalition types that are in the talking head space. This is basically Daniel Bongino with better hair. Right? This is Ben Shapiro if he wasn't Jewish and he had spent some time doing methamphetamines or done manual labor, if his hands were slightly rougher. Like, these people are not that different from what you hear. This is Graham Allen. This is David Rubin. If you guys don't know the difference between Graham Allen, I had a post this weekend where people were really mad at me. I posted Dave Rubin speaking about something, and I was like, I can't believe people listen to Graham Allen. And they were like, what are you talking about? Like, what is all that? I'm like, listen, Graham Allen is a gay version of David Rubin. If you guys know who those people are, then you'll understand what was going on. Anyway, this guy, I'm gonna let him continue for a second and just these people exist. This is why you don't get to vote your way out of it. There have to be enough critical mass of these people to be able to get Donald Trump. There isn't for the next round because enough people have walked away and been like, I don't think so. This guy's not my friend. And then you end up in a really bad spot where we're going to get whatever the next thing is, which is how you end up with, President Newsom, because they think they can swing it.
Is that jealousy or something? Are you jealous of that? That he knows what to do with his money and he knows how to do it?
Were you a critic of Joe Biden?
He is not corrupt. He's not even close to corrupt. And you know what? You want to know what you're doing right now? You're saying that I saw he corrected yourself. You said you were saying Trump to the other people, but now you're talking to me and you said Trump administration. So
no, the formulation is the Trump administration has been significantly more corrupt than the Biden administration.
Yes, but
that's what it's been from
Trump,
the start.
And then you were talking to them saying Trump, and now you're saying Trump administration.
I'm saying both. I explained to you how Donald Trump was corrupt.
Okay, so Trump is not the administration.
I used to have some friends that would do cocaine, and they would end up with like real dry lips, and then their teeth would start showing at some point. They would end up with their lip flipped upward, and they were like, "Oh, it's the time of the night when the teeth are exposed," because this guy is like really, really close, cotton mouth. He's super worked up. I don't know what he's strung out on, but he's like looking and he's wiping, or he just, he just loves Trump so hard. Maybe so.
Trump is Trump. So you think he's in control of whatever happens on something else, or
the company that received hundreds of billions of dollars from the UAE is Trump's company.
And that's all Trump's fault.
Trump's company. He created the company with Steve Witkoff, with Steve Witkoff's
kids. Is that Trump's fault? Yes or no?
Yes, of course it's Trump's fault.
I'm jealous of that, or like because he's.
Guys, if you create a company and then that company gets a bunch of money from people who are bad people, like, are you the company? No. Well, are you responsible for the company? Yes, that's what's being said. And Trump is not an argument, it turns out. Okay, you guys want to see the same energy? You want to see the same energy as that guy in a person that is now a quote unquote Trump critic? I'm totally open to people giving a different reason and changing their opinions based on the facts. I am less forgiving of that as you get older, and I think that's pretty fair. I think if you hit the age of 40 and you are flip-flopping to the point where you are now directly 100% diametrically opposed to your previous position without some significant life event, like, I don't know, like maybe the government puts you on a watch list and tries to run you out of polite society, that would be a moment. If you had all these ideas and you had access to the people that were saying those ideas, and then something completely different comes out of your mouth, I don't know, a year later, then I kind of want to know, like, hey, what happened to you? Like, what major life event caused this radical change? Or I think you're a whore. Politically, I think that you are emotionally, verbally, ethically a prostitute willing to sell out your spot for something else. And that's what I see here. This is from also, just like that time when Donald Trump was talking about Miriam Adelson getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom, this is roughly August of 2024. I'm not even going to tell you who it is. Ready?
You will look out for our boys, too. Our forgotten boys and our forgotten men. Guys like you. Guys like these guys. Who've got the calluses on their hands. Who work for a living with the beards and the tats. Who maybe have a beer after work and don't want to be judged by people like Oprah and Beyonce, who will never have to face the consequences of her disastrous economic policies. These guys will. He gets it. President Trump gets it. He will not look at our boys like they're second-class citizens. And ladies out there who want a bit of girl power in this election, let me tell you something. How can you win when the sons and the husbands and the brothers and the dads you love are losing?
So we need a woman to tell us what a man is, apparently. And this is a woman who's going to defend those blue-collar workers, those men with calluses on their hands who might like to have a beer after work or whatever. That's Megyn Kelly, a woman who's never held a real job. And I do not consider media, generally speaking, to be a real job. Especially when you have no principle. Ain't that something? That was Megyn Kelly campaigning on behalf of Donald Trump. How many dudes were like, she's pretty, she's saying nice things, I like that. Whatever she says is good with me. Yeah, you guys know who you are. And it's partially your fault. Here she is defending Donald Trump's record on women and potentially sexual assault. It's interesting how people change over time. This is the same reason why a lot of these boomer folks are in the space that they're in. They follow a Ben Shapiro, and as Ben Shapiro shifts, so do they. They follow a Megyn Kelly, and maybe they follow whatever she has to say, which has changed dramatically over the years. Here she was when she was campaigning on behalf of Donald Trump, hanging out with Donald Trump, and she was a surrogate in many ways for Donald Trump's arguments, including, like on this TV show right here.
There's wrongdoing here, right? There was definitely wrongdoing. Whether it should have been a crime is a separate. What's the wrongdoing? What's the wrongdoing? All right, number one, it's paying $130,000 to a porn star to keep her quiet. That's to try to protect your campaign. Can we at least agree that's wrong?
That's not illegal.
It's not illegal,
no, I just said moral versus legal.
Wrong. Are we talking moral?
I made it clear. I'm making it clear. For a minute, I'm talking about morality versus legality, right? There's no doubt that he engaged in.
All right, I'll tell. Here's my response to that, and I said this on my show the other day. I don't know what kind of weird marriage these two have. Same as I didn't know what kind of weird marriage Bill and Hillary Clinton had. So I don't know what their covenant is in terms of what he's allowed to do on the outside of his marriage.
But again, I don't mind the sex,
it would be a serious problem.
But I'm not talking about the sex. I'm talking about the $130,000 to keep her quiet to protect his campaign.
Immoral. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing.
Really? Okay. Look, again,
if somebody runs for office, they just lose the right to have any privacy. They just have to let us see all of their dirty laundry from the moment they declare forward, or somehow they've done something morally wrong or legally wrong.
What is the Republican Party? What is American conservatism? What is the Republican Party? It's individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity. I don't ask much more of anybody.
That's actually not the Republican. I mean, maybe that's what the Republican Party is trying to sell, but that's not what conservatism is. Conservatism is saying that there is a right and a wrong, that there is a historical way that human beings have been prosperous. And so we actually recommend that. And it comes with a Christian moral worldview, whether you like it or not. It has Greek and Roman roots when it comes to governance, and it has Christian ethics. I'm blown away that these people don't have simple answers to simple questions. She just said the craziest things because why? Because she was prostituting herself to Donald Trump. Because that's how you get access to having people from the cabinet come and sit on your show. That's how Kash Patel and Daniel Bongino will come and do an interview with you. That's how that lady decided to defend a country music sensation before anybody else even, they looked at it and they were like, hey, you know what's not freaking conservative? A 26-year-old girl dating a 45-year-old Hindu guy. The girl who's trying to sell Christianity to you as a brand. That's not particularly ethical, and it's certainly not conservative. Now, I don't think that we should be saying whether it's wrong or right as an American perspective, but as a conservative, you'd be like, hey, there's 20 years between you. You don't have a common stance when it comes to religion. How are you, as a Christian, going to raise Christian babies in a Christian household when you're marrying a non-Christian hedonist? How does that happen? And that person happens to be a Hindu guy. And he apparently is Hindu enough that he keeps the dietary traditions there. How does that work? Isn't that a reasonable thing to ask? You'd think. Megyn Kelly, never there. Megyn Kelly, flip-flops all over the place. I found some really fun stuff. Now that you've seen her defend sexual mores, here's my favorite. Let's go to this last couple days. Because the same voices that were 100% on board with selling you the Donald Trump, including the President of Peace things, they can do one of two things. They can come out and say what they saw and why it was wrong, or they can angle like Tulsi Gabbard, or they can just act like they never said that thing. And the prostitutes act like they never said that thing because they never believed it, so why should you believe it?
But I am fascinated by the protection of women.
2016.
And understanding what we're getting in the Oval Office. Another woman who has alleged groping, unwanted groping, by Donald Trump is with us back now with 3 of the 16-plus women who have accused President Trump of sexual misconduct. Trump is on record as saying he did this. And you are all familiar by this point with the Access Hollywood tape. I don't think Donald Trump is a rapist or a sexual assaulter. I do think he's taken inappropriate liberties with women and gotten handsy with them in a way he's owned himself. And it is what it is. That's the past. I don't give a shit about Trump getting handsy with somebody 20 years ago.
Ivana, his first wife, accused him of raping her.
2026.
That she alleged in her first. Talk about a glass house. I mean, Trump has cheated on every wife he's had. He met Marla Maples while he was still married to the mother of his children, Ivana. Right. It was all over the New York papers. I'm from New York, upstate New York, but I was in New York when this all went down, the city. And he was like being touted, like he was proud of the affair. It was all over the papers. So, and by the way, Ivana, his first wife, accused him of raping her. That she alleged in her first book that he was so angry over the hair transplant he got that she made him get. It was so painful that he raped her. And she later retracted that when he ran for president. But that stood on the books for some time. I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm just saying, clearly not a great relationship there. Right. And then he winds up with Melania. And, if you think Trump's been faithful to Melania, okay, that's great. You got bigger issues than I can solve here. Right. But so the nerve, nerve to act, for him to be judging somebody else's marriage or love relationships or choices, it just shows you like he's got chutzpah, I guess is the word for it, beyond. And it was really inappropriate. And it was wrong. It was what he said was wrong on many levels.
Got it. So these are the big voices that we're supposed to listen to that are going to tell us what's going on. Like, of course, America has slipped and is not getting what they voted for. The people that you're getting your information from, Megyn Kelly was a Fox News host, and she said it herself. She would have known if she was at Fox News what the right position would be based on what was going on because she was at Fox News. It's the same thing she knew when she was at NBC. She championed transgender issues. These people have zero moral center, which is the same reason why I look at Mike Johnson and go, I don't trust anything you're saying because I don't think you even believe it. He said that in such a throwaway way. I'm going to play it one more time. Is this some man who has the courage of conviction and believes passionately in the thing he's saying? Or is he a guy who's just spitting out something that he said a bunch of times because it's easy to say and conflating two things, conservatism and the GOP?
What is the Republican Party? What is American conservatism? What is the Republican Party? It's individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, and human dignity. I don't ask much more of anybody, but you got to hold to the core principles that made it.
What are the core principles? That's the problem. This is the argument that we've been making. There are a bunch of people in America that have principles. There's a bunch of people that you could not get to cross their principles. We found out who those people are. So I'm going to make an interesting argument to you. I think it's interesting. It's something that occurred to me yesterday when I was out running. I was jogging and I was thinking about who is it that I know will at least take a hard stand on something when the chips are all down. And I would like to see people who are conservative represented by someone who lost something because of COVID, who lost a job because of their position under COVID. That's it. If you were someone who opted into the vaccine early and you thought it was a good idea and you maybe changed your mind later, but it was too late, I don't really care. I'm not mad at you. I don't think you're a bad person. I don't actually strongly feel one way or another. But I don't need regular people that are going to step into spaces. When I'm talking about who's going to be the warlord that steps in and makes a decision when no one else is willing to do it, I want to see people who are willing to lose every single thing that's comfortable and safe. I want to see people who are white martyrs under COVID represent me, because you can't represent me if you're not that. That's who represents me and my family. And interestingly, unilaterally, across the board, I'm sure there were women that did it, but the men that I saw who got into that space were the only ones who not only said something, but they did something and they paid something heavily. My friends who were at the FBI that didn't do it, the biggest, most costly experiences came from men. So that's it. You want to know what the solution looks like? For my solution, it is I don't want to be represented by people that were willing to make peace with any evil, even if it was more comfortable. I want to find people who found the line, know what that line looks like, and are now only willing to push forward from that line and take territory back. aggressive conservatism. Generally speaking, conservatism is a very defensive position. It is trying to conserve that which we think are our values and our principles. The problem with being defensive on that stuff is you constantly lose lines to the crazy children that are willing to go out there and surround a governmental facility and tell everybody that they're a retard and they want to record it in case there's violence. I want to see people that have basically said violence is always going to be on the menu. I would like it to not be the choice, but you get to choose that as the orderer, because this is not something that we are going to compromise on. We're not making peace with evil. We're not voting for the lesser of two evils. We are no longer willing to play the game where some teenage girl in a do-rag and yoga pants gets to stop armed grown men with physical strength when they're doing what they are required to do to try to keep this country safer than it was. If that's the position and you're willing to go and say, yeah, and I might lose my job, my friendships, relationship with my family, it may cost me all of those things, but my children and their potential future is so much more valuable than that I pay that cost willingly and gladly. That's what I think needs to be done, sadly. And I want to show you that there are some people, and they're coming from the worst places and the least expected places, because we've already crossed all the rational and normal lines. They've already been over. Like, we've got past to that. It's the places where the craziest things have happened, the Seattles, the Portlands, the Los Angeleses, where you're going to see people not on the right, because the people on the right have already abandoned and left. They're not there. If you were like when someone who's from California, who lives in Los Angeles County, bitches at me about my position, I'm like, shut your weak, frail, unprincipled mouth. Take your little position and shut it. You pay taxes to the state of California, which funds ads for abortion. So we are not the same. I'm not running from something. I refuse to have someone extort my cash and use it for things that I don't believe in, like gun control. I'm not going to pay to fund that. If I live in Austin and Austin gets stupid, I sell my house in Austin and I move north. If Texas gets stupid, I move to somewhere that's not stupid, because I'm not dumb enough to think that one guy being angry about it and funding it while I'm angry is acceptable. If enough of us did this, by the way, we would have one little thing. It'd be the Great American Readout. It'd be a bunch of people that think the same way. We are the minority if you're a conservative in America. I say we. You are a minority. You are an aggressive minority. The only way that minorities win in these things is when you band together. You're not going to be able to vote your way out of it. You're not even going to be able to hold your positions long enough in New York City for you to get destroyed. What you need to do is find where you are strong and build up a common wall, right? The Spartans with the 300 didn't go out there and meet them on the open plain. They went and said, this is the choke point where no more than 300 can pass. And that's where we're going to have our stand. Because meeting in the open field, they surround and destroy us. So for everybody that wants to hang out together and, I've got 5 people at my church that believe this way, even though most of the people in my church don't, leave that church then. I'm sorry. That church is not representing the things that you believe. Why are you there? You're not going to change their minds. You're in the minority. You get swallowed by the majority. I was in Virginia. I saw what it looked like. I was like, oh, my neighbors are down with BLM. They're not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to die here alone with my children. I'm going to go where people believe what I believe. So there's at least a couple of us so we can hold a choke point. It may be the gates of fire, but at least it is a possibility of standing up. You don't meet them on open fields. You get destroyed. And it might mean about a lot of people making a lot of runs. And it might mean we fill up Montana and Wyoming. So be it. Parts of Idaho. If you think you can stand in the open field, go look at any military conflict. Nobody meets where you are strong, where the enemy is strong and you are weak. That's how you get destroyed. You don't even make a footnote. So all the arguments, and by the way, this is something that Daniel Bongino used to say too. He's like, I don't know when it's going to get bad enough. And I respect you for standing and fighting. I think that you're foolish if you stand and fight, because you are funding your own demise. And if you're going to vote and think that that makes the difference when you've had all the evidence that it doesn't for the last 20-something years, then I think you might have a mental illness. I don't think it's an insurmountable mental illness. I think it's kind of like depression. It could be overcome. It doesn't need to be with medication. It probably has to do with lifestyle change. You're going to have to adjust your perspective to figure out what in the actual hell it is that you justify and you make it work. How does it work that it wasn't right, but now it is? And by the way, if you get Gavin Newsom in 2028, you're going to go back to saying that there was no fair election again. Or you could just join us early. A pessimist is rarely disappointed because we always expect a bad outcome. That's kind of how I live. It turns out when I get a good outcome, I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm happy that we had Donald Trump show up in January of 25, and I'm happy that some people got pardoned. I'm disappointed that he didn't live to it. So I'm going to take care of what I can take care of, and I'm going to surround myself with people as best I can who also do. For all the people that argue that leftism is a mental illness, I think people that claim that they're conservative living surrounded by leftists are probably also mentally ill. I don't know how else you describe it. And the people that are leaving that party and recognizing like this is not the party, this party is not doing what it said, they're just they're prematurely enlightened, and it upsets certain people like the meth MAGA guy that we saw. They get pissed. Here's how I know. Okay, here's my evidence. I'm going to make it to you in one single video clip. These are people in Seattle, and these people in Seattle have started erecting barricades, and they are doing the Chop Chaz autonomous zone of their nice, beautiful, like upper middle class neighborhood because they are sick of gangs of shitbags and criminals driving through their streets shooting. So they started creating, pretty nice looking, by the way, planter box pylons that are blocking off access to their street. They are creating their own little enclave, which is going to be basically a white enclave in this case. But I'm sure they don't mind if they have neighbors that have different color skin as long as they share the same values. You know, like America. We're going to see people who have the same values hold on to what is valuable in their space, and they're going to have to do it physically, they're going to have to do it manually, and they're going to have to do it without the blessing of government. They're going to do it with that final authority that always exists within man, which is things that I can do and things that I cannot do. It's a lesson from Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Johnny Depp's character says it. There's no code. There's no right and wrong thing. It's like, what can I do or what can I not do? What you can do is you can put a planter box in the middle of the street and say no more black gang members are going to be shooting on our street because they're going to not be able to drive over this block. Or you can not do that and you can have your houses shot up. And we're going to end up right there. And again, if the people that are stuck in Seattle are coming up with it, their answer probably should be sell your house while it has some value to some suckers that are like in Los Angeles that think it's better in Seattle. And hunker down where people agree with you. Anyway, that's the solution that I see. If you see other ones, by the way, put a comment. I'm not mad at you. I want to hear what you have to say. Maybe there's a better way. Let me know what it is. Enjoy this little clip about Seattle deciding to get pretty local and warlord-like.
We just saw a Honda Element drive around here, so we got to put a stump over there, I think.
You can't just illegally block the road because...
Another conflict divides North Seattle's Greenwood neighborhood.
It's either this or bullets in my neighbors' houses.
Not gunfire, but how far residents are going to stop it.
Our neighbors put these up in self-defense.
The risk of emergency services not being able to get through here is greater than the good that they think that they're doing from putting up this.
Makeshift barricades now block 3 streets off Aurora Avenue, and they're building frustration.
And I just don't think that this is the right fix.
It comes after residents like Kate and Peter say they've documented at least 8 shootings in about the past month within roughly 10 blocks of their homes.
We celebrate when there's not a shooting.
Until that evil is taken care of, we got to deal with this.
Seattle requires permits to block or place structures in public streets. Unauthorized obstructions can lead to fines or removal orders. Kate and Peter say they were built over the weekend and say they don't know whether a permit was approved.
You can't just move these makeshift barricades out of the way. And you can see here they're made of dirt, gravel, chunks of concrete, and even logs.
But doing it yourself, I don't think is right.
Some say it goes too far.
It's not a good way to protest. It doesn't solve anything.
It's not a fix for sure. It's a Band-Aid. This is Tylenol for stage 4 cancer.
Conflicts between neighbors ended in understanding and, in one case, a handshake.
I'd shake your hand and give you a hug if you're into it. But,
I'll shake your hand, sir.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Peter.
Peter Clark.
As neighbors push the city to stop the violence, their homegrown roadblocks could find themselves at the top of the city's to-do list and be removed.
We're at the point of we have to choose between the lesser of evils.
Yeah. So what's the big difference between this bunch of people blocking an ICE facility, setting up a temporary roadblock, deciding who comes in and out, and people who are taxpayers that are living in houses that are $800,000+ who pay all the city's taxes and cause all the things that, like, you know, fund all the things they need. What's the difference? The difference is the people who normally follow the rules are going to decide at some point that they're done following the rules. And so when this country decides to break, and it will break locally, I think, in ways like this, like it's happening in Seattle right there. I'm showing you evidence that locally you can see a complete break in what you'd expect them to do. Getting a permit, asking permission, telling the city, we'd really like it if you didn't have these things happening. Could you do more patrols in here? Would you probably drop the crime? They're going to stop. And so you're going to have the divide in this country is not going to be left versus right. It's not going to be Republican versus GOP. The divide in America is going to be those who want to be left alone to live as Americans and those who cannot leave well enough alone and keep interfering with it. And what they're going to find is the people who want to be left alone have a lot more hard skills. They've got a lot more tattoos from the GWAT. They've got a lot more guns and ammunition and forward-thinking preparation. They've got a lot more capabilities. They've got a lot more tactics and techniques. They've got protocols to handle this stuff, and you're not going to like it if you're on the other side and you think that wearing a do-rag and sitting down on the freaking ground is going to matter when my 8,000-pound F-250 that I put a freaking killdozer sweep on the side and hit you with my cattle grill because my baby's in their back and we're leaving. We're getting out of this neighborhood right now. We're driving somewhere, and you're in the way, and I'm not stopping for you. So you're either going to get out of the way or you're going to get mowed over. When that starts happening, then you're going to realize, like, oh, who's going to come and stop that? Who's going to stop 50 guys like me in my neighborhood deciding, yeah, we're done with your shit. You can't do that anymore. We're not going to not pick up our truck. I saw this the other day too. We're not going to pick up the truck that we just paid 80 grand for, which is massively inflated and shouldn't cost anywhere near that because there's a bird nest on one of the tires at the car dealership. Nope. We're going to take our keys that we paid. We're going to get in that vehicle and we're going to drive. And the bird, which has a little nest in there, can F off, regardless of the federal Migratory Bird Act that protects a freaking robin nest inside of a wheel. Nope. Not going to do it. The time for playing nice is likely over. We saw a real strong taste leading up into 2024. We got a guy that said he was going to give us all the things that made sense so we could outsource the violence in the election and the things that people were feeling in their heart. They were like, this needs to change. And then that guy turned around and opened up a war with Iran and decided to go and do a bunch of things like primary a Tom Massie and completely abandon all these things that he said he was going to do. And there's 20 of them and he's gotten 3 of them done. And now we're back to placating kids in front of ICE facilities. So that's what happens when I spend 3 days offline. I recognize that my neighbors are normal and relatively like sane, sober, and I would say people who know what's good for themselves in their own lives. And they're not going to keep waiting for a government to come and give it to them. That's what I think is going to happen. Should we play something kind of funny? I feel like we should. Let's see here. I've got a video of a woman who has really figured out a lot of things about men. And I feel pretty good about the way she describes this. So we're going to play this real quickly. Guys, if you haven't done a like over on YouTube and on Rumble, I'd appreciate it if you did. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, by all means, do so. I'm seeing that our live chat, including my mother, who decides to come in there and give you guys insight into my mentality. My mother, who said once that I was the angriest person that she's ever met, which I thought was like something I was a little proud of. I don't know, like if you're in your 60s and I'm the angriest person you've ever met, that's kind of impressive. I'm also very angry when I'm doing housework, it turns out. And I did some projects over the weekend, and this woman has got a really good bead on housework problems and how to judge whether or not men are being successful on the work that they are doing. I liked all of this. I think this is all true. She said that you can measure the progress of the actual repair and or project through the MFers being dropped by said man. All men I know that are good at doing things have mistakes. If I don't leave a little bit of blood on a project, then I probably didn't even do it. So let's enjoy just a commonality. The types of people that probably have tattoos, the types of people that have calluses on their hands that Megyn Kelly was gaslighting us about, that might want to drink a beer at the end of their workday or whatever crap that that she was trying to sell to us. The people who are the opposite of Donald Trump, people who know how to get their hands dirty and do some home repairs with their own 2 hands. let's enjoy this little lady, who's also pretty, by the way, saying something I think is inherently true.
I can measure how good a home project is going by how many mother effers come out of my husband's mouth. That's the system. That's the metric. If it starts quiet, oh, that's terrifying. 30 minutes later, I hear mother F. Okay, something stripped. Totally normal. Then it escalates. Who built this mother effing house? Oh, the previous homeowner has entered the chat. And handy husbands love fighting inanimate objects. This mother effing screw. This mother effing pipe. This mother effing wall. Sir, you bought all of it. And why do they always act like this one project saves money? I mean, it does, but is it worth it? Meanwhile, we've been to Home Depot multiple times. We've spent $900. And he's bleeding through a paper towel taped to his hand. But they never quit. Somehow, 11 hours later, the project's done. He's covered in dust, dehydrated, emotionally unstable, standing there, hands on his hip like, honestly, it looks pretty good. And the best part is, it does.
Nailed it. That's right. Yeah, it's a fight to get this stuff done. This is every man. Every man hates the house that he's in. The minute that it's fine, then he forgets about how hating it. But yeah, I hate inanimate objects. I will fight ladders. I will fight card tables that are in the way. I will destroy boxes that shouldn't have been there when I slip on because it's freaking cardboard on concrete. I really hate cardboard on concrete. I've stripped all the screws. I've bloodied all the knuckles. I've pinched all the fingers. Yeah. That's exactly right. And when it's done, it's done. Because men go to war with the physical world every single day. That's our job. Women, they create civilization. It turns out it's probably time for men to do some physical world stuff. And it's going to be things like barricades. And it's going to be things like blocking off some of these dumb shits that do evil things. And we're going to say, that's it. This is my job. You're going to see that MFer, that frustration and rage, going to be channeled into some really, really scary places. It's going to be to protect the women like that and our kids. We won't be hating the previous homeowner. We're going to be hating the previous guy that voted and allowed all these children to act ridiculous. Anyway, but she's correct, though. She is correct. If you don't hear some MFers, if you don't hear some swearing, some banging, some frustration, I mean, are you even really doing the project? You're probably a professional, and I hate that about you. Guys, thanks for watching today's program. It's Tuesday. We're starting the week a little bit short on days, so thanks for being here for this one. Make sure you share the program if you have not done so already. I look forward to seeing you for the rest of the week. I have no idea what sort of disappointments are coming our way, and maybe some positive things we can laugh about. I've got about 20 funny things that I saw over the last 3 days as well that I will be sharing with you. God bless all of you. Let's see how this week's goes. Talk to you real soon.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.